Okay, so this video is going to be going over the Unit 8 Quiz 1. So this first question here, we have find cosine of theta if sine of theta is equal to 2 over 3. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a picture. Okay, so I'm going to make my triangle here. Okay, we'll label this as my theta. So remember, sine is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. Okay, so if theta is here, we have opposite, which is 2, and then our hypotenuse is 3. Okay. Now we need to find the cosine of theta. Well, cosine theta is going to be equal to the adjacent over the hypotenuse. Well, we have the hypotenuse here. We have the opposite here. Yikes, we don't have that adjacent. So now we got to use the Pythagorean Theorem to find that adjacent side. So here I'm going to have 2 squared plus b squared is equal to 9 squared. Sorry, 3 squared. Gave away the answer there, 3 squared. This gives me 4 plus b squared is equal to 9. Subtract 4, subtract 4. We get b squared is equal to 5. Square root, we get b is equal to the square root of 5. Okay, so we'll leave it as square root of 5 there. So now to find the cosine, we just plug in adjacent and our hypotenuse. So we're going to have cosine is equal to the square root of 5 over our hypotenuse, which is 3. There's our answer. Boom. Okay, number 2. So in each triangle ABC, angle C is a right angle. Find the value of the trig function indicated. So here we have find tangent of A if A is equal to 3 and B is equal to 4. So again, I'm going to draw a picture. Okay, there's my right angle. Okay, we'll label this C, right, because the angle C is the right angle. We'll label this A, and we'll label this B right here. Okay, so remember, little a is the side directly across of angle A. So here's 3, and then B is going to be right here. Okay, and then A is the angle we're talking about, so right here. So let's label our sides. So if this is our angle, this is our opposite. This is our adjacent. Okay, there we go. So then tangent of A is equal to the opposite over adjacent. Well, those are the two we have. So then all we do is plug those in. So we have tangent of A is equal to opposite 3 over adjacent 4. There's our answer. Okay. Number 3, now we want to solve the triangle. So now we want to find all of our missing pieces. So this angle and then these two sides here. Okay, so let's start with that angle. So that angle, remember, these angles have to add up, all 3 of these have to add up to 180 degrees. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 90 plus 67. I'll show you what I'm doing here. Okay, we have 90 plus 67 gives me 157. Then I take 180, subtract 157, and we get 23 degrees. Okay, so the first thing we found was angle B. We get it as 23 degrees. Okay, 1 out of the 3 done. Now let's find, let's say, this hypotenuse. So let's find this side. Okay, well, we're going to use the angle that we're given. Well, according to this angle, this is going to be our opposite. This is going to be our hypotenuse. Well, which trig ratio do we use that uses opposite and hypotenuse? That's going to be sine. So we're going to have sine of 67 degrees is equal to opposite 8 over hypotenuse, which is little c. Okay, now we want to solve for c, so I'm going to multiply by c. We get c times the sine of 67 is equal to 8. Well, c is still not by itself, so I'm going to divide by sine of 67, divide by sine of 67. We get c is equal to 8 divided by the sine of 67. Okay, then I plug that into my calculator, so I have 8 divided by the sine of 67 degrees. There we go. We get c is equal to 8.7. And we're rounding to the 10th place here. Okay, then the last thing we need to find is this side right here, so little b. Okay, well, using the same angle, well, this is our adjacent. So now we're going to use opposite and adjacent. Well, that's tangent. So here we're going to have tangent of 67 is equal to opposite, which is 8, over adjacent, b. Same process as last one. We're going to multiply by b, multiply by b. Here we have b times the tangent of 67 is equal to 8. Divide by the tangent of 67. We have b is equal to 8 over the tangent of 67. Then we just plug that into our calculator. Boom. Round to the nearest tenth. We get b is equal to 3.4. Boom. There's our answer. So we know we're done because we found all 3 missing pieces. Okay, number 4. So here, now we have to find this side and then these 2 angles. So let's start with little c right here. So to find a little c, we're going to use Pythagorean Theorem. So we're going to have 9 squared plus 8 squared is equal to little c squared. Okay, we're going to square those and then add them together. So we get 81 plus 64 is equal to c squared. And we get 145 is equal to c squared, square root, square root. Okay, so we'll just have c is equal to the square root of 145. We'll leave it as that. Boom. Or, actually, I changed my mind. We can have 12.0 as an answer as well. Okay, so either of those are fine. Okay, so now we just got to find these 2 angles. So let's start with angle A. Well, according to angle A, that's my opposite. This is my adjacent. Okay, so we're going to have tangent of A is equal to opposite, which is 8, over adjacent, which is 9. Okay, to solve for A, I'm going to use the inverse. So I'm going to have A is equal to the inverse of tangent of 8 over 9. We get A is equal to, after we plug it into our calculator, 41.6 degrees. There's angle A. Then the last one is angle B. Well, angle B now, according to angle B, now this is opposite, and this is adjacent. So we're still going to use tangent, but now they're just flipped. So we're going to have tangent of B is equal to opposite, 9 over 8. Okay, same process. We get B is equal to the inverse tangent of 9 over 8. Let's plug that into our calculators. We get B is equal to 48.4 degrees. Boom. There's the answer for that one. Okay, and then the last problem, number 5, we want to find measure B. Okay, so we want to find this angle here. Yeah. Well, the first thing I notice is that this is not a right triangle. Okay. Well, then we think, well, if it's not a right triangle, then we go to law of sines. Okay. So now we want to find one that has both the angle and the side. Well, yikes, I don't see that here. Okay. Because here, I can't find the side. I can't use Pythagorean Theorem because this is not a right triangle. So when we get to this point, now I resort to law of cosine. Okay. So first, I'm going to find little a. I'm going to find this side because once I get this, then I can use law of sines to then find angle B. Okay, so let's start with it. So here, I'm going to use law of cosines. So I'm going to have a squared is equal to 27 squared plus 22 squared minus 2 times a, which is 27, times 22, times the cosine of big A, which is 72. Okay, so remember, these should correspond, right? The side and the angle, and then in between are just the sides that are left over. So 27 and 22, right there. Okay, so then I'm going to plug this all into my calculator. So I'm going to have 27 squared plus 22 squared. And be very careful how we're plugging into our calculator. Minus 2 times 27 times 22 times the cosine of 72. Okay, so here I get 800. Let's see if I can get this to focus here. Maybe if I turn this off. I can't get it to focus. But here I get 845.8878. Okay. But I still have to square it. So I'm just going to put this here, 845.8878. Okay. I'm going to make sure I use the whole decimal that I have. I'm going to square root. So then I get A is equal to, well, I'll square root it. And I get 29.08. Okay, so now I have side A, little a, as 29.08. Okay, perfect. Now that I have that side, now I can use law of sines to find what we're looking for, the measure of angle B. Okay, so now I can set up law of sines. So I'm going to have 29.08 over the sine of 72 is equal to, well, 22, right, because this is the side that corresponds, over the sine of B. Okay, now I just need to solve for B. So here I'm going to cross multiply. So I'm going to cross multiply. I'm going to get 29.08 times the sine of B is equal to 22 times the sine of 72. Okay, so I'm trying to get B by itself, so I'm going to divide by this 29.08, divide by this 29.08. I'm going to get sine of B is equal to 22 times the sine of 72 over 29.08. Well, B is still not by itself, so now I need to take the inverse sine. So I have B is equal to the inverse sine of 22 times the sine of 72 divided by 29.08. Okay, so now I'm going to plug all of that into my calculator. Divided by 29.08. And I get B is equal to 46.01 degrees. And there's the measure of angle B.